His name is Timothy D. Block, and he is here to talk to us today about an AppSec starter kit of some description. Please welcome Timothy D. Block.
Daniel, high five. Woo! Yeah.
Round machine high five. Yeah.
There you go. All right, second try is good enough. So thank you for sticking around. Welcome to Application Security Starter Kit. My name is Timothy D. Block. Since this is a smaller audience, feel free to ask me questions, interrupt me. It allows me to kind of get in the groove a little bit more as a speaker, so feel free to just kind of interrupt. We'll make it a little more intimate. So why this talk? So this is kind of for those who have an interest in application security or those tasked with doing application security. If you were here for my Thursday talk, I talk a lot about my background. I didn't have a lot of application security experience. I didn't have a programming development experience, but it was a field I wanted to go in. It was a field because I was reading the application security content, and it was really kind of resonating with me better than any other of the fields. So it took me a while to figure it out, but when I did, I knew this is where I wanted to go. But yet I still had a lack of background, so I kind of had to do a lot of learning on my own to kind of figure this out. So we're going to go through kind of some of the stuff, some of the challenges I ran into in doing application security. So speaking of challenges, we're going to walk through 5 different challenges. We've got a demo, so hopefully that goes well. We're going to talk about why it's important, why application security is important. That's one of the things in working with developers I've found to be, we've had to have conversations about why we're doing security. You kind of have to get them on board to really make an impact within a development team. Then the other thing is understanding the vulnerabilities. So what actually is cross-site scripting? What does it actually mean? Like, how do you actually do it? And we'll walk through actually exploiting cross-site scripting and SQL injection. But that was something that I saw it all over the place. I knew it was bad, but it wasn't really like clicking with me, even when I had like read an OWASP page on it or read some other resource. It wasn't until I actually did it that it started really, oh, that's what it makes sense. And cross-site scripting, others here have said it is really a bad name for it. It's more like injection. But for whatever reason, it is what it is. And that's kind of some of the gotchas that you'll get within any field. Then we'll walk through testing the vulnerability. So I picked up Zap pretty quickly, got started with that pretty right off the bat and got going with it. And it's really easier than it seems. And then we'll talk a little bit about embedding security into like a development lifecycle type of thing. That is one of the most important things, is trying to make the business run more efficiently and to avoid problems in the future, but also not put roadblocks or any kind of gatekeepers in place. And then we'll also talk about like learning more, where to go for some of the resources. And we'll focus on the people that I've had like I've gotten a lot out of when studying application security. So why it is important? Well, there's 3 things. Because management said so. Security is an enabler, and the internet is a scary place. So management said so. When building out 2 AppSec programs, that has been the biggest reason why developers have listened to me and worked with me in building out an application security within their process. There's 3 different kinds of developers. Chris Romeo actually on Friday or Thursday, I can't remember, earlier in this conference talked about the different kind of developers in an organization, and he covered it really well. The 3 I've really run into is those that are interested. So you will find people that are interested. Those are really easy to work with. There are some that are not interested at all, think security is just a hindrance to them, busting out some new feature or new application. And then there's some that are just indifferent. They do it because their management said so. All 3 have to listen to their manager, or they're going to have to either look for another job or have to deal with the manager. So that's one of the important things. I try not to lean on management a whole lot. I try to be more personable with them and things like that. But that is there if I ever need to. I have had a CIO say, after a dev's brought them an application to demo it, has this run through security. So that kind of support is in security, and it is important. Security is an enabler. So we talk about this where, macros. Why are we enabling macros? Things like that. And I pulled that image from Google Image. If you go to the actual visit page link, you'll see this big blog post about, well, why am I getting the security alert? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Well, here's how it is. Here's how to fix it. I'm going to write about it so other people can do it. This right here is a problem for us. So people have to get their job done. So you kind of have to understand that when you're working with people in application security, particularly developers and other people, you kind of need to understand where their frustrations are at, what they're trying to accomplish, and if you're kind of hindering them for that. We want to put them in a position to succeed. Are there instances where you need macros all over the place? No. So that's kind of dependent on your environment. But I think this is a good example of kind of how we talk about macros and why are macros still enabled? Well, apparently they're doing something. It sometimes requires us to actually have to investigate what that is, and maybe there's a better way so we don't have to actually enable macros. But we also, we support them in other more developer-friendly functions, code review, unit testing, static analysis, things like that. Try to embed it all in the process. The other thing is the internet is a scary place, especially after, I think yesterday it was coming out about the ransomware spreading across Europe, and we've got people. So I work with a development team, and I got hit up by one of the guys there saying, "Have you heard about this? The service desk is going on." I'm like, "I'm at a conference right now. I'll look at this in a minute." But Mariah earlier this year, or actually no, Mariah's been around a lot longer than that. That's been since last year when they open sourced essentially the malware and allowed collected a bunch of IoT devices and started throwing 600 to over a terabyte worth, 600 gigabytes to a terabyte worth of data at websites. That's more of like a startup focused. IoTs a lot of these cameras and stuff aren't having security embedded within the process. Cloud pets. So they had this is a pet that you could have between one person, or it was just like an app on a phone that a traveling father could talk into, and it would go to like the teddy bear with the child. They were uploading that to AWS. Didn't have any kind of protections around it, so if you figured out the correct URL, you could just start going through to the different URLs and downloading the audio between a father and their child. With this, that's on AWS. There's a lot of development teams moving to AWS. So there's things like that to keep in mind. I love this KCD with the Bobby drop tables. Are you sanitizing your database inputs? And then there's also database loss due to ransomware, which we'll actually walk through in a demo. I'll show you where that's actually at. These are all things that apply to application security because of developers are getting more into DevOps and things like that. But I actually have 3 internet is a scary place slides, so we're not quite done. Actually 4. The LinkedIn, are you doing proper password storage? When the LinkedIn breach came out, they were able to crack like most of the passwords in a pretty short time. So are you doing password storage correctly? VTech, there was no SSL on the site, and it was vulnerable to SQL injection, which is how they got all that information out of there. And there's tons of other examples. But one of my favorite ones is the Ashley Madison breach. So we will focus on scanners, but there are other things to take into consideration with the website. Are they handling sensitive information properly? Are they handling passwords? User enumeration is a big thing as well. So this is Ashley Madison's forgot password page. Can you spot the difference? There's when you have a fake email address, this is invalid@invalid.com, the field stays there. When you actually have a valid account, the field goes away. So even before the Ashley Madison breach, they were promoting that they were a discrete website. If someone figured that out, a spouse could figure that out, just a comparison thing, they could figure out who actually has an account on there. So even before the breach, they were doing something security-wise that would have compromised their users. And all this stuff is on Troy Hunt's website, which I've got a link there. It's really some great stuff. So that's kind of some of the important things of why it's security. And we point to Ashley Madison, but this could easily apply to your own organization. So, understanding the vulnerability. actually just ripped this slide from my other talk. OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. This is where I started trying to understand. It's a nonprofit, open source organization, free everything. You can go there. You can contribute if you're so inclined. But it's got a knowledge base. It's also got projects which have frameworks for building out application security programs or different functions in there depending on what you need, and tools. And so now we'll step into the demo, which I hope goes well. But I want to warn before we do anything is that when you're doing this stuff and you're trying to build up your skills, you need to have permission to do stuff. This is even your internal organization. Make sure you have permission to do it. If you can get them to write it down, you want to prefer, because someone could say, go do this, and then you take down something, and they're going, well, who told you to do this? Where is this? And, if you have something in writing, ideally you want to try to get that. I have tried to get stuff in writing before. Hasn't happened, so sometimes you kind of have to trust. But don't hack other people's stuff. We will probably kind of go on the edge a little bit, because I have some localized stuff that you'll be able to use for testing and working up and understanding this stuff better, but we're going to go out to the internet and look around a little bit. And that can get into a gray area. Once you cross a line, you could be in serious trouble. I actually worked with, Dan's not in here, but Dan, one of the organizers, was like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, yeah, try this one instead. So, it's always, a very gray area. So hopefully, I don't intend to cross any lines. And please, someone, if you see me crossing a line, just stop me, because this is recorded. So, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm trying to be very aware of all that. Someone hey, you have your permission to just come up and tackle me. Yeah. We're going to have to burn that tape, take out the camera. And the backup. Damn it. So I am actually, what I'm doing is I'm going to switch this back to mirrored mode, because I'm not working off trying that big screen because I can barely see it. So let's just change that display, because that looks, you can see that? You can see that. Boom. Okay, cool. All right. So the first thing I have for demo is WebGoat. So OWASP WebGoat is a project. It is, you can go download it. I'm running it in Docker. So we got a little Docker icon up here. It's really easy to set up. As you can see there, I got role user going on. WebGoat is a great tool, and as you can see here, it's got all this different kind of vulnerabilities. It would take me a while to go through this. So we'll just kind of focus on, I actually don't want that all the way. We will look at cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting, there's three different kinds. There's stored, reflected, and DOM-based. I'm going to focus on stored and reflected. So within stored, and what's great about this is that, you can try playing around with it. It'll show you the solution, kind of walk you through, explain everything about the concept of cross-site scripting. But we'll just do, this is like a form type based. This is to indicate like a form or something. So I click here, hit test, I go to the message. Well, now we're going to add a little cross-site scripting code, because I didn't memorize all this. I'm just grabbing my code here, pasting it in there, and anyone want to guess what's going to happen? The stored? Yeah, it's just everyone's favorite alert box. Ha ha ha. So, and you can see that so if anyone goes to that forum post and loads that page, it's going to execute that script. And it doesn't have to be an alert box. It can be, whatever you can do within the HTML, within the website. So it can be very dangerous. You can see here the message, the code is just gone. So now it's just being rendered as the HTML code. So you don't even see it. We'll do XSS2, we'll do it again. And really, you can put any sort of stuff in here. Again, we're alerting, but you can put, numbers in here. 1337. So that's as simple as that is. And this is where you get to have the fun and maliciousness of exploiting this. And what I like about this, go away, is that I've successfully completed the solution. Right? So if you click the show solution here, It's got all these great screenshots. This is where I pulled the code that they wanted. It kind of explains it a little bit more. So reflected, we've got here a shopping cart with a pin. And then if I just copy that. And I'm going to put it in the pin number here. Purchase, bang, I'm dead. I got something in there. So with reflected, it's a little bit more, reflected, you're kind of, so it's typically when you're going to like send a link to somebody to try and click on. It's going to have the code within the URL. So that requires some phishing and a little bit more. People aren't, I was just about to say people aren't going to go randomly click stuff, but that's not the case. That's not true. So that's cross-site scripting. Pretty basic. Are there any questions around that? It seems pretty straightforward. Like I said, I struggled with this for the longest time, and then when I finally started doing this, and this is why I want to show like a practical thing, I started understanding it a lot better. And it gets really, really complicated. Like DOM-based cross-site scripting is I'm still trying to wrap my head around a lot of that stuff. So now we'll go to the fun stuff, which is SQL injection. If I can find it. Sure.
So Zombie Tango is giving a demo on that.
Okay.
And you see that pop-up box, right? The alert box.
Right.
And we had a bunch of people in the CTO of the data center that I was hosting was there at the time. He'd do something, he'd pop up the box, and he got some cheer, and he's like, control for that. And then here's how you stick him with that control. Back and forth, pop up the box, pop up the box. And we cheered, we're all laughing straight. And about the 6th or 7th time, there's no box. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe I'll log into my email. Maybe I'll log into my banking. You're like, what's going on? And he'd injected in Metasploit's keyboard logging module. And it took the entire browser.
Oh.
And all of us thought it was, oh yeah, it's funny, it's a little dialogue box. In the CTO, I look back and he sits in this chair and his face hits the tail. Because you think of something like that, oh yeah, it's just a dialogue box. But JavaScript.
So that's a great point. I'm actually kind of disappointed I didn't include that in my talk. There's a thing called Beef, B-E-E-F, that will do a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think who actually makes it. That is part of like the Samurai. So the Samurai Web Testing Framework has got all the AppSec tools that you would ever want. You spin that up in a VM, and Beef being one of those. I actually haven't used it a whole lot. I tried, playing around with it. And ran into a little bit of issues. A little gotcha with that is if you have Zap or Burp up, it will not work as well, which is what I think I did. And I found that out yesterday going to Kevin Johnson's training. He's like, here's a gotcha. And I was like, that might be why I struggle with it. But it does. It allows you to, once the person has clicked on the link, it hooks it. And then you can, with Beef, start injecting different things within their browser and do some really, crazy stuff. Start collecting passwords, pop up a Windows box to log back in. So if they're on a Windows machine and it's like, hey, you need to relog back in, someone's just, and then you got their username and password. So it's some pretty powerful stuff. And again, it says cross-site scripting, but really, and this is how I just think about it more, is just more injection. Right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. That was good. So string SQL injection. This is fun. So nothing, Jon Snow. So I'm going to type your name in. It didn't work. I think I have to have a capital S. So there we go. We got like credit card information, things like that. All you have to add. Let me see if I can do this without looking at my notes. So, yeah, I think that's that. 1 = 1. I did not do that right. Okay. There we go. And we get the whole database. So, and what it is essentially we're putting in, and I don't even think you need a name in here. You can, so if I go back here, just hit go, I go back. I don't even think you need a name in here to get this Snow to work. It will just, maybe it doesn't, maybe it does require a name. Okay, the way they got this set up, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. Or maybe I've just hosed everything. Oh yeah, so it's the other thing here. Oh, gotcha. can reset it. So let's try that. And yeah, so I didn't even need the last name in there anyways. So what essentially that's doing, and one of my favorite stories is that I showed this kind of code because I did find like blind SQL injection, which we'll get into next. I showed this to a developer, showed them the attack code, and it like a light went on, and they were like, "Oh, hackers are so smart." So it was really interesting. That interaction is one of my favorite ones. But all it's doing is we're within the code, we're commenting out, or if this is true, then it'll return everything. So blind. Let's see, I think that's it. Yeah. So blind. This is a little bit more complicated. So we'll run through a couple things here. So what we're going to look at here is grab this. And this is looking for account numbers, and we're essentially going to be looking for a PIN. So if you can see down at the bottom there, right here, the account is valid. So if I change this to 2, invalid account number. So now I've got 2 different messages from the SQL database, and I am able to now, from this point, start doing a little troubleshooting, little guessing. So here is the solution attack code. So we're doing 101, and then we're going to select the PIN. So we're looking for the PIN number for the 101 account. And is the PIN number at less than 10,000? There you go. It's an invalid number, but let's check. I know what the number. I think I remember what the number is. If I go to 2,000, count valid. So now at this point with this code, I am starting to be able to narrow down what the PIN number is for this account. And that's kind of the blind SQL injection where you can kind of use things that you're getting returned from the database to kind of start making some guesses. So if I go to 2400, invalid account number. So now we're down to a PIN number between 2300 and 2400. So we'll do 23. So now we move to the next number. Let's split that in half. Account is valid. So let's split it in half again. 75. So it's between 75 and 50. So you get to this point. I think it's like I think that is still invalid, but then, yeah. So there, we've got 2363, 236. Thank you. Yeah, 2364, and I think the actual solution is 2364. So I think if I, yeah, so that is the solution for that. So if I show the solution here, I think and you can see this is where they showed you all the attack code. I pulled this down for this demo just to kind of have a good way of showing SQL injection. Didn't want to go to the internet and do that. And I want to say they had the answer here. We know what it is, So that's pretty much that. So the next thing I would like to move on to is, and this is very important, Showdown. Showdown is, and like I said, it becomes a lot more relevant because developers can just go download MongoDB, throw it up in their application, and the thing about MongoDB is that it as part of its installation, it just goes and grabs an IP to talk out to the internet. Doesn't have any authentication around it. You got to go change all those settings. So we see here a bunch of MongoDB instances. And if there's not authentication on them, as you can see here, people are coming in and dropping, contact me. So these are probably hit with some kind of variety of ransomware. In fact, this was earlier this year. Niall Merrigan found a threat actor with DB hacked that was asking for Bitcoin from at this email address here. So and this is how easy it is to just look for this stuff. If I do DB hacked, I'm going to get all the databases for that particular threat actor. And so people are constantly looking for this stuff to hack and get easy money from it. So this is where having an idea about properly configuring things even within technology. I'm running Docker right now. A lot of development teams are moving towards Docker. That needs to be secured in a specific way. And the final thing here is Google dorking. And this is Google is a powerful tool. We'll do some, because I was getting derped earlier. Google was flagging me for some suspicious searching. So let's see if my name works all that well. I'm probably all over the internet. Timothy D. Block, you can see there. But what I like to do when I search for people is I will put like these operators around it, these double quotes, and that will refine the search more. And that's not really a good example there. But what you can do with Google Dork is you have these different operators. So I'm looking for a file type of a spreadsheet with username, password, and email. And oh boy, we've got a lot of different stuff here with spreadsheets that have username and password. Again, then this is where I had to ask Dan about to make sure I wasn't crossing a line. I actually had another search in there. And I'm not going to click on anything here because at that point I'm probably crossing the line as far as like downloading a spreadsheet with username and passwords. You can do searches for social security numbers. There are social security numbers dorks in here. There are one of my favorite ones that I wanted to do, but I'm not going to, is there's one that says confidential. So it's looking for confidential salary schedule. So, you know, it's supposed to be an internal document, but it's not internal. It's on Google. It's being, you know, cached there. You know, the whole cloud bleed thing where they had that leak and then things were getting cached in there. They had to go wipe out the cache. And this is just to highlight that, and one of the things I found is more of an issue than some of these other vulnerabilities is handling of sensitive information within application security. That seems pretty obvious, but it should not be overlooked. And in certain industries can be a violation of your compliance auditor if it's found on a website. I have found YouTube videos with PII in them and other things. So it's that I think that is very much a thing within application security to be aware of. It's not always about hacking the application. That's the wrong one. Okay. So actually. So as you can see here, and you guys can just look at my notes, is so these are some of, and I like to provide these, is input, providing, how to kind of mitigate some of this stuff. So cross-site scripting, input validation, escaping, encoding libraries. So there are some frameworks out there, depending on what technology you're using, that can be implemented that will, help with input validation. Using response headers, content security policy is a big one. On the SQL injection side, prepared statements. So that's like actually preparing what's actually going to be called to the database instead of letting any call happen whatsoever. Store procedures, escaping, privileges, whitelist. There are a variety of different ways of preventing some of this stuff from occurring. And the reason why I got to see those notes is because we're going to actually go ahead and run through Zap. So this is Zap. It's free. It's from OWASP. Which you'll see here is that we've got a URL attack that will just do a shallow scan. So you just throw a URL at it. It's going to go what it's fine. What you want to do is you want to proxy all of your traffic between your computer and the application. So we're going to capture it, and then we're going to be able to just start doing some scans and some other malicious things with it. This is a very powerful tool too. As you can see there, I got tools. I've got all sorts of different stuff to try and perform on this. So, but I'm just going to show you some basic stuff that really gets you started and trying to understand, how to go through assessing a thing, because that's not something I knew. I just started using the tool and just started generating reports. Found some low-hanging fruit, so I had plenty of work to do. But each time I use this, I kind of get a little bit, I learn a little bit more about the tool and try to use it a little bit more. So all we're doing is we're going to Tools, Options, and we're going to, this is where you kind of set it up. This is where you capture stuff. So my address is 127.0.0.1, which is your home, your local box. I am using port 8081. You can use any port you want, but the reason why I'm using 8081 is because Docker and the WebGoat is using 8080 right now. So that's, usually it's 8080, but I mean, you can really name it anything you want. So you have that set up. I can either go to my security preferences here, or my system preferences here, and go to my network. I'm actually not going to do that, because not that, but you can proxy it through your network, What I like to do is, and we're just going to go back to WebGoat and start capturing some of this stuff there because it's local, not messing with anything out on the web. I've got my demos app for all URLs, and now I am collecting traffic between my computer and the WebGoat application. So this also kind of highlights that you can use the tool and have things set up to capture traffic in the middle there. So Tim, go. We'll click on maybe some of this other stuff, password strength, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you go back to here on Zap, and you can see my history tab has all the traffic that's been captured between my computer and the application. From here, oh, this is a good thing. As you can see, I am picking up some of the stuff from Chrome. If you need, you want to exclude stuff from your scan. So you have a particular scope of an application, but due to your computer, you might be picking up different things. So sometimes I'll just grab my entire computer because it's easier than spinning up a VM, and I want to exclude stuff because it starts picking up Google and some of the other stuff running on my machine. And I'll exclude it from proxy, hit OK, and it's gone. The scanner will not capture any of that stuff anymore, and you don't have any chance of potentially, attacking something else, attacking something you don't want to. Another thing to point out is I'm in standard mode. You have a safe mode, protected mode, and an attack mode. So if you're going through the application and you want to kind of attack it while you're doing it, you can do that, and it'll do a lot more heavier scans as you're traversing the application. I typically stay in standard mode though. But here is where we get into some of the fun stuff. So I've clicked on WebGoat here. You can't see it because it's been highlighted out. I don't know if that's a bug or a new feature for Zap. Do the spider, hit start scan. You can see it's very configurable, so you can get into some pretty advanced stuff. And you can see it ran through a spider. So it's going through, clicking on everything, clicking all the links within the application. You can see it was really quick. It was really quick. If I had gone through WebGoat and absolutely everything, the spider would have probably taken a little bit longer to go through it. So that's why it's very important when you're assessing an application, go click on absolutely everything, fill out every field. Sometimes that requires getting with the development team to submit a payment, register a new user, different things like that. The other thing you can do in here is Ajax Spider. I think I tried it before and it didn't work, but if you have Ajax content, it will pop open a browser. You can kind of pick whatever browser you want. I usually go with Firefox. I think it will just fail, so I don't think it works. But you can see it opens up Firefox. Maybe it'll do something. Yeah, it's doing a little bit. But you'll see it just start running through. You can see the history here, which I think it's kind of cool that my machine just now seems to have a mind of its own as it's doing an assessment. And so it's flagging different stuff there. And then you have a forced browse. So this will go and look for hidden directories. This is the scan that probably takes some of the longest time. But you've got, I've got different lists that come basic with it. You can import your own text file into it if you have a particular set of directories you want to look for. Or, you can probably go online and find somebody with a more thorough list. This will pretty much go to every URL and try a different, hidden directory in there. I won't run that because it takes a really long time, and sometimes it's a little buggy. As you can see here, I don't have. Yeah, there it goes. So, yeah, and you can see the counter here is going. Not really picking up much. Anyways, but this is the next part is the fun part. So what you're doing with those first 3 scans is you're pretty much mapping your application so that you can then go and actually throw some vulnerabilities at it. An active scan is what will go through all those different vulnerabilities. And you can see here, you can actually watch it. So we've got path traversal. Let me see if I can zoom in. I cannot zoom in. I'm not a Mac guy. Sorry. So you can kind of see it's going through path traversal, remote file inclusion, server-side, cross-site script, and SQL injection. It'll run through everything you have on there. And then once it's done, we'll go ahead and stop this. You can generate a report, and all it is just generate HTML report. I actually am not going to pull that one up, but you can save a report. You can save it as an XML. XML will allow you to then throw it into some kind of tracking tool. Defect Dojo is what I use. There's Dradis or ThreadFix is another one. Did you have another one? Dradis, yeah. So I didn't have a lot of success with Dradis, but I've talked to people who are like, yeah, I love Dradis. So you can import that in there, and that helps with like tracking stuff. So what I did was I actually went to Troy Hunt has a Pluralsight course that is hack yourself first, and so I actually went there and ran a scan. I don't know if I was supposed to or not. But he allows you to go there and exploit some of the vulnerability. So I did like a quick scan just to kind of show you, because with WebGoat it wasn't finding a whole lot, which was interesting. But the website there, you can see here I got some cross-site scripting. So it has like a good description of it. And this is kind of where I started living when I started doing application security. It had, it's got the URL, it's got the method, it's got the parameter, and then it's got like the attack code. So what you can do with this is then go back to that URL yourself and actually confirm that that's an issue. And you always want to confirm your findings before you take it to a development team. You throw false positives at them, and they're not going to like you very much. Yeah, well, yeah. I've gotten them to like me pretty much for the most part, but yeah, I sit with them too, so I'm kind of showing them that I'm a real person, have a little laugh with them, things like that. And then there's some like reference links. You can come down here, you can see that they're actually pointing at webappsec.org to talk about cross-site scripting, a CWE, and you can see it's path traversal. So this is where again you go back and confirm all this stuff. So pretty basic stuff. Did that help anyone? Anyone have any questions? Actually running out of time here, so we will get going. Back up. Get over there. And I don't have my speaker notes, so that's okay, but that's okay. Well, actually, what we're going to do, sorry. There we go. Cool. All right, so these are static analyzers, pretty basic. You zip them up in a file, you upload them, and then you get results. Thing to be concerned with about that is that they have a lot of false positives. So you really have to go through and kind of dig into the code because they don't have any context. So what I like to do is I like to do a static analysis first, and then I'll go do the dynamic analysis and try to exploit some of this stuff that I get from the static analysis. I'll also sit down with the dev team to kind of work through them with it. I have found that they're like, wait, what are they doing there? That doesn't make any sense. And so at that point, it's a code quality issue. It's not necessarily a vulnerability, but they're kind of getting some visibility into the code. Source focuses typically on one language. Commercial will do multiple languages. Again, there's an OWASP page there. So embedding security. This is where, again, we want to really get security embedded as much as possible. We can do that through code review. I wanted to implement code review in one of the first programs I stood up, and the manager thanked me. He started thanking me. He's like, I wanted to do this because it's not only a quality thing, it's also a security thing. Or I guess it's not only a security thing, but it's also a quality thing when you're talking about code. Good, secure code is quality code, is a term I've heard quite a bit. There's also automation, and I'm actually starting to come around to automation and using some of these tools. Jenkins is a very powerful tool. I was able to do a full static analysis on an entire application by using Jenkins to just pull down all the repos and shoot it up to our static analyzer. TeamCity is the paid version for that, but Jenkins is free, open source, big community around it, got a lot of plugins there. Node security project, so if you're dealing with Node, which seems to be pretty popular right now, that will check for outdated modules, so NPM modules. It will go to check for that stuff. And as this isn't unlike patch management within the operations side. Making sure your NPM modules are up to date is very key. I have a feed for that to kind of see what's going on, and there are vulnerabilities that come out pretty regularly on that. So going to the cloud, what I've loved about AWS, I know a lot of people are hesitant to send their application up to someone else's computer. but they have built a lot of security stuff around this. This is Trusted Advisor, so it'll go through and do some basic security checks on an AWS account. Looking particularly at security groups. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. Security groups, is there multi-factor authentication on? Is it on the root account? Has the root account password been changed? Basic things like that, which is really helpful, and also is really helpful with visibility. So you can create alerts relying on this. And the security blog is constantly coming out with suggestions about doing different things within AWS that you can automate and set up. On the Azure side, there's also Azure Advisor. So a lot of the same things are going on there. Then within IDE, there are, within your development team, there are IDE plugins. PumaScan is one I've heard about recently. It deals with .NET, but you have to have Visual Studio 2015 or later to install it. So if you have 2012, which probably a lot of people are still on, might not necessarily work. Cigital is a little bit different. It does .NET. It does PHP. I'm blanking on the other one. I want to say it's Java, maybe. Huh? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's out there if you need to go look it up. So, learning more about security, and this is where I kind of share some of my favorite people. Troy Hunt is kind of reading his stuff. He's a very easy read. He's got really long blog posts. I kind of feel like he's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into the field. He does a lot of different stuff. He's from Australia, so he does training, but you need to go to Europe or the West Coast. So I think he was out at RSA this last year doing training. After the fact, companies can fly him in to do training for developers, security people, whatever. He does a lot of Pluralsight courses, and I love going through those courses. They're anywhere from, he's doing a lot of play-by-plays recently with some other people talking about different things. But he's also got some longer courses, particularly Hack Yourself, or Hack Yourself First, and he goes, he gives you a website to then go and actually do. I was actually a little bit scared going to the website because a lot of people were there, and it's a vulnerable site, so you have to be very careful about that, I think, at this point, because it's been out there for so long. He's also on YouTube. He recently started doing a video blog, which also has a podcast component to it. And he's the creator and maintainer of Have I Been Pwned, which is, I don't know that that's really necessarily AppSec focused. It's probably more infrastructure. You can tie in to know if there's any kind of new accounts that have been breached because people sign up with their work emails for different things, different services. Be kind of good to know, and probably use the same password. Pluralsight is, good question. Pluralsight is like $30 a month or $300 a year. So but it's not. It's in fact, I got it last year because I was coming in new and we had a little bit of training money. I was like, can I get a subscription to this? So they signed me up for a year, and now like a bunch of other people in our entire IT department have got like the enterprise account. So and like I said, there's a lot of content. What I love about Pluralsight too is that I've actually been able to go learn a lot of development techniques. So how to use Jenkins, how to do all this. And they will usually have courses that walk you through and give you a GitHub page to go to and download the code and then, mess with it. So you get some hands-on stuff there. It's not just watching videos. So speaking of training, the GAC, the Web Application Penetration Testing course, is what made things click for me from an AppSec perspective. I had the company pay for it, so it's usually about $5,000 to get into one of the SANS courses. An alternative to that I like to give is Tim Tomes, who will do, it's under $1,000. He's doing DerbyCon, which is like a $1,200 training. That has a waiting list already. Are you in that one? 5 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. Hurry up. I thought you were raising your hand like, yeah, that's me. Woo! I was like, I'll see you there. But so his training also focuses on 2 days of like breaking the application, but then fixing it. So it's actually training aimed at developers. I think security people can, ride along with that. He will come to an organization if need be. I pimped him out of my last course, or my last talk. So I really like what he's doing. Podcasts. I love podcasts. So there have been some ones that have emerged. DevelopSec by James Jardine is focused at developers. But he talks a lot of stuff that security people will take away something with. Then there's the Application Security Podcast, which is run by Chris Romeo, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name. He was here at this conference recently. They do more of a seasonal thing, so it's a series. And then Risky Business is just good for general information security news. It's actually one of my favorite podcasts. It's probably my favorite information security podcast. Good quality, good content. He's also Australian, so he's got a little bit of humor there. Yeah, so podcasts are really great. Books. The Web Application Hacker's Handbook is considered the Bible of application security. That is 800 pages of application security goodness. I can't recommend it enough. I've got it sitting at work for me to reference. I am actually still going through it to try to learn some different things and just going through it. Threat modeling is something that I want to do a little bit more. What the threat modeling? Yeah, I've started going through it to try and do a little bit more with the development team about design. And I've got two threat modeling experts here, so I really should defer to one of you two. I might butcher this here, but it's kind of walking through flow diagrams to have an understanding of where security issues might pop up or things need to be put in place. So it's kind of, I feel like it's more of a design kind of function. Would that be correct? You can do it, yeah. Well, yeah. So, yeah, it's just a good exercise and something if we're looking at books, these are probably the two top books that I hear about most often in application security. And then blogs. This is a little bit interesting. I've actually found the vendor blogs to be really good. Invisium really focuses on a lot of burp stuff and some other techniques. Synopsys kind of focuses on a little bit of everything. The Zap and Portswigger blogs, of course, are really good and are ideal for keeping up with kind of their tools and what they're doing with it, because they're coming out with plugins, they're coming out with new releases, things like that. And then Rossini at GitHub.io, he's the guy I've recently talked to about Docker security, so he's doing a lot more with Docker and things like that. So Docker being the new thing out there, it'd be good to start reading up on some of that stuff. And that's pretty much my talk. Don't really have a good wrap up for all that.
And there's the kid. Go.
And there, yeah. There. I got a flight to catch, so see ya.
Free IT or free training in general. There's a few web app pen tests.
Okay.
Cybersecurity.
Okay, so Cybrary, someone's mentioning some more resources. Cybrary.it. Okay.
And the only thing I say is that it's just a nice introduction and everything, and then start going on to little site things. That'll get you.
Cybrary being free, yeah. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that kind of walk through how to use Zap and how to use Burp and things like that. So there's plenty of content out there. As I said, WebGoat's really great because it walks you through. It's really easy to stand up. It's giving me a little bit more exposure to Docker and how all that runs. So, So that's my podcast, Exploring Information Security. I'm at Timothy D. Block on Twitter. URL, email address. Again, if you're looking for a security engineer or junior pen test role and you're willing to move to Nashville, Tennessee, come talk to me. I am leaving very quickly after this to go catch a flight, so do it quickly. But either that or just email me or something. So, any questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you.